Alright guys, what's up? So I've got a seriously creepy story for you today that's straight out of India. A buddy of mine from over there sent it to me, and honestly, when I read it, I was hooked. It was so wild I just had to share it with you. Quick heads up before we start. The story uses a couple of local words. Like jungle just means a deep dark forest, and a chudale, that's their word for a seriously scary witch. And a tantric have magical power. A tantric is a very powerful man. Alright, let's dive in. Hello friends, my name is Sudhanshu Prakash. I'm from a small town in Meghalaya in India. By profession, I'm a writer. My job is to travel from village to village, connect with people, and turn their true, personal, and scary experiences into stories. When I was little, I spent most of my time reading books. I loved reading ghost stories, tales of magical worlds, and cursed treasures. But as I got older, I realized that most of the stories written in these books were fictional, having nothing to do with reality. And that's when I decided that when I grew up, I would work on carving out true events onto blank paper. I got older, and by the time I was 24, I started visiting ancient places, old villages, ruins, places like that. I would write down the true events associated with them in my thick diary, and then, adding some words of my own, I'd shape them into a story. I'm 32 now, and I've written many stories so far, but I had no idea that this search for stories would one day lead me to a world from which escaping would be nearly impossible. This story starts about 6 months ago, when I had gone to visit a small village right here in Meghalaya. This village was nestled alongside jungles. Tall, long, dense trees surrounded this lovely little village, which could attract anyone. I had gone there thinking that surely the villagers would have some scary tale on their lips. Since this village is in the jungles, there must be stories about ghosts, spirits, or wild animals. I would try to find the truth behind them, and then shape it into a story. It was around 12 noon when I reached the village. I started talking to the people there. I was asking them if any scary incident had happened there in the past, related to ghosts, or if there was some mysterious event whose truth had never been uncovered. I was asking the villagers, but no one was willing to talk to me about these things. I couldn't understand it. Did that mean no such event had happened here? But then an elderly man, who was lying on a cot under a peepal tree there, called me over and said, "Look, all the villagers are busy with their own work, so no one will want to waste their precious time talking to you. Let me tell you, many incidents related to ghosts, spirits, and wild animals have happened in this village. But I think I should tell you about the event happening here now, whose truth hasn't been uncovered to this day. See that hill in front? They say that at night, a vampire resides there. And not just any vampire, one from another world. At night, very strange noises come from that hill. Those noises aren't from any animal. It sounds like many men are fighting amongst themselves. Just last year, a man from the village went to that hill to solve this mystery. But when he returned to the village around 9 p.m., he was panting heavily. And before our eyes, he collapsed on the ground, lifeless. But before dying, only one word was on his lips: vampire. They are vampires. He died saying just that. And since then, the villagers believe that vampires live on that hill, and it's them who make those strange noises at night. They come from another world and then return to their own world at dawn. Now, how much truth is in this, I cannot say. It's just the villagers' belief. But now we villagers don't go near that hill, and you shouldn't go there either. Otherwise, your corpse might not return from there. That elderly man was saying this to me, and I told him, "Okay, uncle, I'm leaving. I'm going to that very hill. I'll return only after finding out the truth. I'm a writer, and I only shape true events into stories. If I have to write a story, I must uncover the truth. Thinking this, I set off towards that hill. That elderly man kept warning me, "Hey, don't go, you'll get killed." But I didn't listen. I headed for the hill. It was around 5 o'clock in the evening. I had reached the hill. I was sitting on a big rock at the base of the hill, thinking that, as the old man said, strange noises are heard from here at night. Now I had to wait for darkness. Black clouds began to gather in the sky. Strong winds started blowing, and I knew it would start raining here very soon. This happens every day here. I started climbing the hill. Darkness was slowly spreading its feet. In no time, it started raining heavily with strong winds. I took out a black-colored raincoat from the bag I had slung over my shoulder, put it on, and holding a large flashlight in my hand, I started climbing the hill. The rain was quite heavy. The sound of raindrops falling on the leaves was creating a lot of noise. I was climbing the hill when my gaze fell on a wooden house built some distance away from me. This house was on a tree. Although I couldn't see the house clearly, I could still see it in the flashlight's beam. It seemed to be built with wooden planks nestled between branches. I remembered that the old man had said that humans don't come this way. So then, who built this house on the tree? The rain was getting heavier. I thought, why not go closer to the house and check? Maybe someone lives there. I could stay there for a while until the rain stops. At the same time, I could also try to find out from the person living there about the secret of this mountain. Thinking this, I directed my steps towards the house. Just then, a scream reached my ears. It was a very sharp scream, and I quickly hid behind a tree because the sound had come from inside that house. I kept looking towards the house. Who was inside who had screamed so loudly? I had turned off my flashlight. That sound kept ringing in my ears. I couldn't understand what the words were. Perhaps the loud noise of the raindrops was preventing me from understanding them. But still, I knew that there weren't just 1 or 2 people in that house, but many, and they were fighting amongst themselves. I was hiding behind the tree, watching the wooden house, when lightning flashed in the sky. Its light fell clearly on the house, and then I could see them. Several strange-looking creatures, dressed in white, were coming out of the house to climb down from the tree. A wooden ladder was made to go to and from that house, and they were using it to come out. They were screaming and shouting. Their height would be at most 3 to 3.5 feet. I couldn't see their faces clearly, but I could clearly see their large ears on both sides of their heads. I was alarmed. Were these the vampires the old man was talking about? I watched these creatures. They climbed down from the tree and ran swiftly into the forest, screaming. It looked as if they were scared of something. You know how when a mad dog chases you, you run away screaming in panic. The condition of these creatures was similar. I was just hiding behind the tree, watching. They all gathered near a tree further up the hill and stood there, looking back at the same house. I couldn't understand. Was something else going to come out of that house? Was there another creature inside who would come out? But no one else came out. After a while, all those creatures sat down under that same tree and started talking amongst themselves. I could hear their words, but I couldn't understand what language it was. I couldn't understand their conversation even when I heard it. Perhaps it was their own special language. All those creatures sat under that tree until about 3 a.m. After that, they started going inside the wooden house, one by one. And a little while later, the whispering from that house stopped. According to my understanding, everything was over. But I knew the truth was just a few steps away. That treehouse could solve this mystery. I needed to go inside that house. But what if those vampire creatures attacked me? I'd be killed, right? I was scared of that too. But I couldn't stop myself. I started moving my steps towards the house. The rain had stopped, but the sky was still covered with those black clouds. I slowly, carefully reached the house. Now, Not even a whisper was coming from the house. Probably the creatures were asleep. I started climbing using the ladder attached to the tree. I climbed the ladder slowly and peeked inside the house by raising my head. It was dark inside. I gently placed my foot inside the house and entered. I started looking around the house carefully. There were many beds inside, not 1 or 2 beds, but beds in the number of 100. I was astonished. How could there be 100 beds in such a small house? This house should only have had 1 or 2 beds, but here there were 100. However, no one was sleeping on any of the beds there. I had now turned on my flashlight. I started examining the house closely. This house seemed very mysterious. From outside on the tree, it looked quite small, but from the inside, it looked like a very large house. I looked at each bed one by one. No one was sleeping there. I looked under the beds. Maybe the creatures were hiding under the beds. But no, there was no one under the beds either. Maybe there was another door at the back of this house through which the dwarves had left. I was looking for another door, but I couldn't see any other door. I couldn't understand where those creatures had disappeared from this house. I turned around, and the scene behind was even more shocking. The jungle, the hill I had come through to get to this house, everything was covered in fog. It looked as if the black clouds from the sky had descended to the ground. I turned on my flashlight and kept looking around the house carefully. Were the creatures hiding under a bed somewhere? But no, there was no one in the house. I now sat down on a bed, thinking, maybe they were some mysterious creatures. Surely they must have come from another world and then returned to their world because morning was approaching. They must be beings from another world. I now lay down on a bed because I was starting to feel sleepy, and the fog outside was so thick that I wouldn't be able to find my way out of the jungle through it. I wouldn't be able to get back home. That's why I lay down on that bed. Morning would come in a little while, and when the fog disappeared completely, I would head back home. Thinking this, I lay down on that bed. But it felt like only 5 or 10 seconds had passed, and I fell asleep. My eyes opened after a short while, and the scene in front had changed. I was still inside a house, but I was lying on the floor, and in front of me were many white faces that I thought I recognized. Those white faces with big ears. These were the same dwarves who had come into that house. But I wasn't in that house now, because this house looked a little different. Those creatures were staring at my face, and I woke up in panic. I got up by swinging my hands at their faces, causing them to fall to the ground. I was standing up, and then the dwarves started speaking. "Who are you? You're human, aren't you? You've come from that world into our world." Now I could understand their language. They were also saying something amongst themselves. I could understand what they were saying. Perhaps I had entered their world through that bed, which is why I could understand their language. They talked amongst themselves for a while. He's a human. He has come here because of our mistake. He will be killed too. That witch and that wizard won't spare him. Let's send him back to his world. They were all discussing, and I couldn't understand anything. These are dwarves, maybe dwarf vampires, but who are these wizards and witches they're talking about? I couldn't understand. Then one dwarf started saying to another, No, we can't send him back. He is the one who can free us from those wizards. Look at his face, look at his build. It's just like those wizards. He will help us fight them. We won't send him back to his world until we win our freedom from those wizards." The dwarf vampires were saying this amongst themselves, and I, feeling scared and panicked, stammered, "Who are you? And who are you talking about?" Then the dwarves smiled a little and said, "Look, don't panic. You can consider us your friends. We are dwarf vampires, and believe us, we will not harm you at all, because we are good vampires, not evil ones. And you have probably come to this world by mistake, or because of our mistake. but I believe nature has sent you to us so that you can protect us from those wizards and witches." That dwarf vampire was saying this to me, and I, scared and nervous, said to him, "Look, I am an ordinary human. I cannot protect you from any wizard or witch." But the vampire said, "You can. You just have to listen to me." The dwarf vampires were insisting, and I was pleading with him, folding my hands. Look, I can't help you. I am a human. Why don't you understand? You, being vampires, cannot face a wizard or a witch. I am an ordinary human. That witch will chew me up raw. I cannot help you. Please, send me back to my world. Send me back to where I came from." But the vampire started saying, "Then stay here. We are not going to send you back to your world. The wizard will come, the witch will come, and I will push you forward in their place. The witch will tear you apart and eat you." The dwarf vampire was saying this, looking me straight in the eye, and I was terrified. The dwarf vampire started speaking again after a little while. "Now you decide. Do you value your life, or will you help us fight those wizards and witches? Maybe we will win the fight, and your life will be saved. But if you don't help us fight the wizards, if you don't listen to us, then I will hand you over to those witches, and that witch, scratching her head, will tear you apart and eat you." The dwarf vampire was saying this to me, and I thought of a solution. That bed installed inside the house. Surely if I go to that bed and just pretend to sleep, I'll fall asleep in a little while and reach my world. I wanted to go to that bed, avoiding the dwarves' gaze. The dwarves were standing at some distance from me. They weren't holding me. If I ran and lay on that bed, maybe I could return to my world. Thinking this, I ran, went to the bed, and lay down. But the dwarves were laughing at me. I didn't understand. I lay on the bed, kept my eyes closed for a while, but when I opened my eyes again and looked outside, the scene hadn't changed. This was still the vampire's world, the world of those dwarf vampires. The ground was black, the trees and plants were black. The vampires were laughing at me. He said, "What did you think? That you could return to your world the same way you came to this one? No, that was our mistake. When we were returning to our world, I should have destroyed that house. We forgot, and you came to our world through that bed. By now it must be morning in your world, and that house built on the tree must have completely disappeared. Anyway, we will not let you go back to your world until you do our work. And yes, for your information, this bed you are lying on is not the path through which you can return to your world. I alone know that path, and you cannot return to your world without our permission. You will have to do our work. You will have to fight those wizards with us." The dwarf vampire was saying this to me, and I quietly got down from the bed and stood up. All the dwarves were staring at me, and finally I had to say, "How can I possibly fight a wizard or a witch? And what have they done to you? Why do you want to fight them?" Then the dwarf vampires started explaining. "Look, the trouble is such that I need the help of a human like you. If you want to know about those wizards, about those witches, then you will have to listen to me quietly. Come out of this house now. I'll show you where that wizard lives, and I'll tell you how that wizard wants to take over our vampire bodies. He wants to make our bodies his own. Come with me." The dwarf vampire took me with him and came out of the house. I was amazed to see the outside world. The ground here was completely black. The small houses here, where these dwarf vampires probably lived, were all black. A red-colored moon was shining in the sky. Apart from this, the trees and plants, there was a hill in front, and that hill was also completely black. I was looking towards that hill when the dwarf vampire started speaking. That black hill in front, on the other side of that black hill, is the wizard's world, and that witch also lives with them. That witch, who used to be our girlfriend once, used to live with us. But ever since those wizards established their world there, on the other side of this black hill, this witch left us and started living with those wizards. Because that wizard looks quite smart. He has a better build than us. Looks quite smart. Our ears are so big. But that wizard looks just like you. Good build. Handsome face too. Perhaps that's why the witch left us and started living with those wizards. The dwarf vampire was saying this to me, and I interrupted him saying, "Oh, now I understand. This is why you want to fight those wizards. Did your girlfriend run away with them?" But the vampire got very angry. He glared at me with red eyes and said, "Look, listen to the whole story, or I'll finish you off before those wizards do." I stood there quietly. Then after a while, the dwarf vampire also calmed down and said, "Look, that's just how witches are. If they find a smart boyfriend, they leave you and go with him. But I'm not sad about that. I want to fight that wizard because he and that witch come into our world and harass us a lot. Those wizards have gotten their hands on a power that allows them to separate our soul from our body. And then he wants to put his own soul into our body, meaning our body will become his. If he succeeds in doing this," the dwarf vampire was saying this to me, and I interrupted again, "But why would that wizard do that? His body is much better than yours, much smarter looking, as you said." Then the vampire said, "Child, you probably don't know how long a vampire can live. A vampire's lifespan is thousands of years. Their body doesn't age so quickly. They can live for thousands and thousands of years. But a wizard cannot live for thousands of years. If a vampire's body gets a cut, a wound, it heals in just moments. But this rule doesn't apply to any wizard's body. They have to live by the rules of nature. They have to endure the pain of that wound. And that wizard wants to separate our soul from our body and put his soul into our body for this very reason. He wants to make our body his own so that he can live for thousands of years, stay alive for thousands of years, and then wreak havoc on the world. But if we want, if you help us, we can stop him from succeeding in this goal." The dwarf vampire was saying this to me, and I said to him, "But how can I help you? I don't even have any powers to confront him." So he said, "Look, don't worry about powers. We have plenty of powers, but we run away from them out of fear because those wizards have that power which can separate our soul from our body, and we have no defense against this power of theirs. If that wizard uses that power on us, then we can do nothing. And the next moment, our vampire body will belong to those wizards. You have to find a solution. I will tell you a trick, and you will have to do it." The dwarf vampire was saying this to me, and I was ready. I said to him, "But after this, you will send me back to my world, right?" Then the dwarf vampire said, "Look, we are not evil vampires. It's just our compulsion that I need your help to fight those wizards. Now I'll tell you that trick. Close your eyes." The dwarf vampire said this to me, and I had closed my eyes. The next moment, when I opened my eyes, I saw that I was in the air. I was sitting on a broomstick. The clothes on my body had changed into what seemed like black robes. I had a black hat on my head and a long stick in my hand. I got a little scared. If I fell from such a height, I'd be finished. Just then, the dwarf vampire started saying, "Don't panic. You won't fall. This stick, this broom, will fly at your command. Wherever you want to go, this stick will take you there. But yes, don't try to run away from here to your world. Otherwise, you will get lost in space and die. Look, now you look completely like a wizard. I'll give you a perfume. Come down a little." The dwarf vampire said this to me, and I said to him, "How do I come down? If I fall from up here, I'll be in bad shape." Then the dwarf vampire said, "Give the stick the command that you want to go down. You will come down." I did just that. I told the stick that I wanted to go down, and the next moment I was in front of the dwarf vampire. The dwarf vampire closed his eyes and started muttering some mantras. Then, after a short while, he had a glowing vial in his hand. Giving me the vial, he said, "Here, take this bottle of perfume. But this is no ordinary perfume. It does have a fragrance, but if this perfume is sprinkled on those wizard's sticks, it absorbs all the power from that stick. You should know that all of a wizard's powers are in his stick. If you sprinkle this perfume on his stick, all his powers will be destroyed. Along with that, the power with which he can separate our soul from our body will also be destroyed. Here, take this perfume and listen to the rest of the plan. You have to go to the other side of this black hill, into the wizard's world. They will try to attack you when they see you, but you have to tell them, 'I am also a wizard, and I want to stay in your world. Humans have banished me from my world.' You tell the wizards this. They won't believe you at first. They will ask you to perform some magic. Then you should hold this stick in your hand and point it forward. By pointing this long stick and thinking in your mind whatever magic you want to perform, that magic will happen automatically. I have put such powers into this stick. As soon as the wizards trust you, they will give you permission to stay in their world. After that, at night, you have to go to the wizards when they are sleeping, and then you have to sprinkle this perfume on the wizards' sticks. Doing this, all their powers will be destroyed. The stick will remain in their hands, but all power will have completely disappeared from it. This perfume will have absorbed those powers. You just have to do this, and then cleverly escape from their world. Otherwise, if the wizards find out about this, they will make mincemeat of you. They will kill you." The dwarf vampire was saying this to me, when suddenly the other vampires standing there started shouting, "Run! Run! The wizard is coming! Quickly, everyone hide in your rooms! Run! Run!" There was chaos there. All the dwarf vampires started running here and there, screaming. And then I saw it too. It was true. Several wizards in black robes, flying on broomsticks, were heading our way. The dwarf vampire said to me, "Quickly, get down from the stick. Come with us to our room, otherwise that wizard won't let you live." I quickly got down from the stick and went with the dwarf vampires to his room. The dwarf vampire performed some magic, and a wall appeared in front of us. It was an invisible wall. We could see through it, but the dwarf vampires said that the wizard could not see us through this wall. He would see a wall here, but we could see them. We were safe as long as we were here, but if they found out we were hiding behind this wall, they would try to break it, and then we would have to flee to your world, just like we had run away that night out of fear of these wizards. We sat there quietly. The wizard, flying on his stick, was peeking inside all the houses. He was probably looking for the dwarf vampires, but he couldn't see anyone in those houses because all the dwarf vampires were hidden behind the invisible wall. For a long time, that witch, scratching her head, kept looking around here and there. The wizard also flew on his stick, looking inside all the houses, but they didn't find any dwarf vampires there. After some time, the witch and the wizard went back. They returned to their world. Then all the dwarf vampires broke the invisible wall and came out. They said to me, See how that wizard comes to harass us. 2 wizards have already taken over the bodies of our vampires, and they live in their world. It is out of this fear that we hide. Otherwise, we have a lot of power. We could easily confront him. You just have to somehow destroy that power. You have to sprinkle this perfume on those wizards' sticks. Now go to the wizard's world." I too had sat on the stick. I had that vial of perfume in my hand, which I had kept in my bag that I had brought from my world. Sitting on the stick, I started saying, "Oh stick, take me to the wizard's world, beyond that black hill." As soon as I said this, the stick flew off at the speed of wind. I sat on that stick, and it flew at wind speed and brought me to the wizard's world. The scene here was amazing. The sky was kind of colorful. There was a building in front, but it looked very crooked, as if it had been built in a very strange way. Doors swinging in the air. I was seeing this for the first time. This building had many such doors that were swinging in the air. I was slowly descending when my gaze fell on the ground. On the ground, many wizards and many witches were gathered in one place, and they were staring at us. But I wasn't scared. I descended slowly. The wizard looked me in the eye and said, "Who are you? You don't look like you're from our world." I said to him, "Look, I am also a wizard. I used to live in the human." World before, but the humans banished me from there because it was the humans' world. Now I have come from there to the wizard's world. I have come to your world, and I want to live here. But the wizard said angrily, "But why did you come to our world? There are millions, billions of wizards, and all live in groups in different worlds. There are many wizards' worlds. Why didn't you go to those wizards' worlds?" I said to him, "Look, I really liked your group's wizard's world because you are evil wizards. And I'm an evil wizard too, right? How can I live with the good wizards?" Then he smiled and said, "Are you really an evil wizard?" I also said to him, "Yes. If you don't believe me, I can turn this building black right now. This colorful building, I can turn it black." Then he said, "Show me." I quickly grabbed the stick in my hand and started thinking in my mind, "Let this building turn black." Really, the next moment, the building turned completely black. The wizard was also convinced that I was truly an evil wizard. Then he said, Okay, turn it back to its original color." I also turned it back to its previous color. After that, I said to the wizard, "If you still don't believe me, should I hang the witches upside down? Hang them upside down in the air?" The witch started saying, No, I believe you. Look, sir, he really is an evil wizard. Let him stay in our world." The witch started saying this to the wizards, and the wizard had full confidence in me that I was truly an evil wizard. He gave me permission to stay. I too, flying on my stick, went into a room in that building. Now I had to wait for night. At night, all the wizards sleep in the rooms of this building, and I had to go to all the wizards before they slept to talk about this, because I couldn't sprinkle this perfume on any wizard's stick while they were sleeping. If I got caught, my death was certain. I had a brilliant way to sprinkle this perfume, one where the snake would die and the stick wouldn't break. Evening came. In the evening, all the wizards had gone to their respective rooms. I started going to each wizard one by one. I first went to the room just below mine, where a wizard already was. I started talking to him, getting to know him, saying that I had just arrived here today in this world, that I was a new wizard. We talked for a long time. After that, I took out the perfume from my pocket. Showing him the perfume, I said, "This perfume has a very nice fragrance. I brought this perfume from the human world. It has a very nice fragrance. Look, let me spray a little on you." Saying this, I started spraying the perfume on his body. He was trying to stop me. "Hey, leave the perfume alone. There are excellent perfumes here. Don't spray that perfume on me." But I kept persuading him, saying, "This is a perfume from the human world. You won't have this perfume here. Just smell its fragrance, how nice it is." Saying this, I kept spraying the perfume on his body. He had his magic stick in his hand, and my goal was to spray this perfume on his magic stick. I was successful in this task. I had sprayed the perfume on his magic stick. After that, I said to him, "See, what a lovely fragrance, what a nice smell, and you were refusing to put this perfume on your body." The wizard was also happy. He also said, "Yes, the fragrance is very good." I talked with him for a while longer, and then quickly left from there. After that, I went to the room below. There was a wizard there too. I did the same with him. He was also happy. Such a nice smelling perfume probably didn't exist in his world. I went to every wizard living in that building one by one. I had sprayed the perfume on all their magic sticks. No one suspected me. The night had gotten very late. All the wizards had fallen asleep. After that, I sat on my broomstick and, flying the broom, returned to the vampire's world. In the dwarf vampire's world, I told him, "I've done my job. Now send me back to my world." But the vampire said, "Not yet. Wait. Now you have to see how I defeat those wizards. That witch who left us and went to those wizards, right? She will come back to us. And then I will remind that witch of her true place." The dwarf vampires seemed a little happy and a little angry. After that, he said to me, "Come on, let's go inside the house. I'll feed you. Delicious, delicious dishes. You've done such a big favor for us, so hospitality is called for, right?" After that, he took me with him to his room. There, in the blink of an eye, a large table had been set up. He had placed that dining table there, using his magical powers. I also sat on a chair, and then dish after delicious dish was served on our plates. We all ate, and now started preparing to sleep. Then the vampire said, "Look, we sleep very little, but if you want to sleep, you can go sleep on that bed." I also went to that bed and slept. My eyes opened a few hours later. I thought it must be morning outside. The sun must be out. But that wasn't the case. Here, black darkness still prevailed. All the dwarf vampires were awake. I asked him about this, but he said, "Look, it's always night here. There is never day here." We were just talking amongst ourselves when a swish, swish sound started coming from the sky. The dwarf vampires became alert. He said, "Those wizards are coming. Be careful." But this time there was no fear on the vampires' faces. Rather, this time they wanted to confront them. Everyone started coming out of the house one by one, and I also came out. I was still in the same black robes that the vampire had magically put on me. The wizard recognized me as soon as he saw me and shouted, You were the one who came to our world, right? You wanted to stay in our world, meaning you are a fraud. You are their ally, these vampires' ally. Anyway, no matter, you will also die with these vampires." The witch, sitting behind the wizards, had come down to the ground, and she started running towards us. The dwarf vampires stood right there. The witch came running to the dwarf vampires, and she started shaking their ears violently. It seemed like she wanted to grab the dwarf vampire's ears and lift him into the air. But then I saw. The dwarf vampire just twirled his fingers, and the next moment, that witch fell about 10 steps away from him. She was screaming in a very strange voice. Her voice was somewhat similar to a goat's. And seeing this, the wizard, all the wizards, got very angry. One wizard who was at the front of the wizards, sitting on his stick, shouted at the dwarf vampire, "You will die, dwarf. But first, let me deal with this fake wizard who is your ally. Why did he come to our world? Let me find out first." Saying this, he twirled his stick. But his magic didn't work. The wizard had understood what I had done to him. His powers had been absorbed by that perfume, and that wizard was very angry. He flew on his stick towards me, grabbed me by the neck, and lifted me into the air. He was going upwards towards the sky, and I understood. Surely he was going to take me into the sky and drop me. If I fell to the ground from there, my death was certain. It was true. That wizard did just that. He dropped me in the air and I started falling to the ground. I was shouting to the dwarf vampire, "You do something. You have powers. Save me from falling." And then the dwarf vampire used his powers. A large balloon had formed on the ground. I fell on it. I wasn't hurt, but I bounced back up into the sky. I fell on the balloon again and went back into the sky. This process kept repeating again and again. And then the dwarf vampire said, "This process will continue until I deal with these wizards and witches. Your life will be saved." After that, the dwarf vampire twirled his fingers, and there in the sky, all those wizards who were sitting on their broomsticks, all the wizards fell to the ground. And then the dwarf vampire started saying, "You wanted to take over our bodies. You wanted to separate our soul from our body. Show us, how can you do it now?" The dwarf vampire was saying this to the wizards, and all the wizards were scared. But the witch, as if she had a different kind of madness, also wanted to fight the vampire. She was flying in the air, pulling the hair of these dwarf vampires. Now the vampires also got angry. After that, he started throwing those witches around, hitting them like footballs. I saw it with my own eyes. The dwarf vampires were tossing those witches like footballs, throwing them up and down. All the wizards were speechless when suddenly another person made an entry. His face looked somewhat familiar. It seemed like I had seen him somewhere. From his get-up, it was clear he was a tantric. That tantric started saying to the dwarf vampires, "Look, I couldn't complete your task myself, but I got it done through someone else. Now you too, according to our deal, hand these witches over to me. I will keep these witches as my slaves. If I hadn't sent this writer to your world, if I hadn't told him about you, that you make strange noises on that hill, then how would this writer have reached you? I trapped him with my words and sent him to your world, and he completed your task. Now you too, according to your promise, hand these witches over to me. I will make them my slaves." The tantric was saying this to the dwarf vampires, and I had recognized him. This was the same elderly man I had met in that village. The tantric kept saying to the vampire, "Hand these witches over to me." But the dwarf vampires, while tossing the witches, said to the wizard, "Save her if you can. Save your girlfriend. This tantric is going to take her away with him." But all the wizards there sat on their broomsticks and vanished from there. And then the tantric put a pearl necklace around each of the witches' necks. The witches wanted to run away but couldn't. The tantric was very powerful. It was as if the witches had fallen into a trance. Then the tantric took the witches with him and disappeared into the ground. The end had come. The fear that had made the vampires run away was gone. All the dwarf vampires were very happy. Now I also wanted to return to my world. But the dwarf vampires stopped me and said, "Leaving so soon? You are a writer, right? Come on, I'll take you to different worlds. I am a good vampire, which is why I can go to any world. And if you want, you can travel through those worlds and write many stories. Different stories." The dwarf vampire was saying this to me, and I was also happy. After that, for the next 6 months, I kept traveling to many worlds. The world of fairies, the world of yakshinis, the world of demons. I cannot tell you what all kinds of worlds I have been through. And believe me, I can write such stories on these that will be very fascinating. If you want to hear those stories of the fairy world, the demon world, then don't forget to comment.